somewhere in the Ural foothills of Bashkortostan, more than 1,000 miles from the nearest Ukrainian soldier, 3 towers of steel and pipe went up in flame on the first night of August. And by the time the smoke cleared over Ufa, the Russian war machine had lost something it cannot replace with propaganda, threats, or another round of forced mobilization. It lost fuel, not symbolic fuel. Not a talking point for state television to spin into a minor inconvenience. Real, physical, irreplaceable diesel and aviation kerosene, the kind that keeps tanks moving and jets flying. And for the first time in this war, the numbers being whispered inside Russia's own energy ministry suggest that the strategic reserve built up over decades of Soviet paranoia is no longer a cushion. It is a memory. If you have been watching this channel for any length of time, you already know we do not deal in speculation dressed up as certainty. Everything you are about to hear is built on confirmed strikes, verified refinery names, published production figures, and the kind of open-source tracking that has made this channel's record on these stories hard to argue with. So before we go further, if you want to actually understand what is happening to Russia's war economy in real time, instead of getting the sanitized version from networks that still can't find Bashkortostan on a map, hit subscribe now, because what follows is the clearest single explanation you will find anywhere of how Ukraine just detonated a hole in Vladimir Putin's fuel supply that Moscow has. No fast way to patch. Let's start with where this happened, because the location alone tells you how far this war has traveled from the trenches of Donetsk. Ufa sits nearly 1,600 kilometers from the Ukrainian border, deep inside Russia's interior, in a region that for most of this war believed itself untouchable. Bashkortostan was supposed to be the safe zone, the industrial heartland where Russian planners could keep processing crude without worrying about a Ukrainian drone showing up on radar. That assumption died overnight. Ukraine's security service confirmed that long-range drones struck the infrastructure of 3 separate refineries clustered around the city of Ufa in a single coordinated operation. The targets were not obscure facilities. Bashneft Ufaneftekhim, Bashneft Novoil, and Bashneft Unst together form one of the largest refining clusters anywhere in the Russian Federation, with a combined processing capacity north of 23 million tons of crude oil every year. That is not a backwater operation. That is one of the arteries feeding the entire Russian fuel distribution network. From the gas stations of Moscow to the fuel depots supplying artillery units on the front line in Zaporizhzhia. What makes this strike particularly devastating is that it did not happen in isolation. This is not an isolated spark in an otherwise stable system. This is the latest blow in a campaign that has been building for months, methodically, refinery by refinery, until the entire logic of Russian fuel security has started to collapse under its own weight. Barely 2 weeks before the Ufa strikes, Ukrainian Special Operations Forces reached the same region and hit Gazprom Neftekhim Salavat, one of the largest petrochemical complexes in the country, a facility that had somehow avoided every previous wave of attacks throughout the year. Ukrainian units traveled roughly 1,500 kilometers to strike it, working in coordination with resistance networks operating inside Russian territory itself, and early assessments indicated the critical primary distillation unit at that plant took a direct hit. Salavat was supposed to be the exception, the one major refinery still standing untouched. It no longer is. And if you are keeping a mental map of this campaign, you will notice a pattern that should terrify anyone in the Kremlin who still believes distance equals safety. Syzran on the Volga River hit and forced to halt operations after a strike damaged a primary processing unit. Slavyansk in the south set ablaze in an attack that also killed Russian personnel. Refineries in Saratov and Samara struck in coordinated waves. Facilities in Krasnodar, in Rostov, along the Black Sea coast, all absorbing hits meant to bleed the Russian war economy dry one processing unit at a time. Now here is where this stops being an abstract military story and becomes something you can actually see with your own eyes if you know where to look. Independent trackers monitoring conditions inside Russia have been documenting something that Russian state media has desperately tried to keep off the airwaves. Across large stretches of the country, gas stations are simply closing, not rationing. Closing, reports from inside Russia describe between 30 and 65% of stations shut down in many cities, with that number climbing toward 80% in some of the hardest hit regions. The divide is stark, and it is regional. Southern Russia, closer to the front and closer to the refineries Ukraine has been targeting most aggressively, is suffering far worse than Moscow or the deeper interior, in towns like Bursk inside Bashkortostan itself. Residents have been documented standing in line for gasoline for up to 8 hours at a stretch. 8 hours in a country that sits on some of the largest proven oil reserves on the planet, in a country whose entire post-Soviet identity has been built around being an energy superpower. Think about what that actually means for the ordinary Russian citizen watching state television tell them everything is under control while they burn a full day sitting in a line that might not even have fuel left by the time they reach the pump. The International Energy Agency, an organization that does not deal in wartime rhetoric from either side, has already gone on record stating that the cumulative effect of these drone strikes will continue suppressing Russian refinery processing rates well into the middle of this year. And that assessment was made before this latest round of strikes in Ufa. Every subsequent wave of attacks only compounds a problem that was already structural. This is not a war of headlines anymore. This is a war of throughput, of barrels processed per day, of distillation units that cannot simply be rebuilt with spare parts ordered from a catalog, because Western sanctions have cut Russia off from the specialized components that refineries like these depend on. When a primary distillation unit takes a hit, Russia cannot just call a supplier in Germany or the United States and order a replacement. They are improvising with what they have, cannibalizing parts from older facilities, extending repair timelines that used to take weeks into repair timelines that now take months, all while Ukraine keeps adding new targets to the list faster than Moscow can restore the old ones. And this is the part of the story that deserves to sit with you for a moment, because it explains why the Kremlin has gone to such extraordinary lengths to control the narrative around fuel shortages inside its own borders. This war has always been sold to the Russian public as something happening somewhere else, on someone else's soil, with someone else's sons doing the fighting and someone else's cities absorbing the damage. That illusion required geographic and economic distance. It required the average Russian in Ufa, in Kazan, in Volgograd to be able to go about their daily life largely unaffected by decisions made in the Kremlin. Standing in an 8-hour line for gasoline destroys that illusion completely. It brings the war home in the most mundane, most personal way possible. Not through a casualty notification, but through the simple inability to fill up a car to get to work, to visit family, to run the errands that make up an ordinary life. And when an authoritarian government loses the ability to maintain that separation between the war and everyday life, it loses one of its most powerful tools for managing public patience. There is also a military dimension here that should not get lost underneath the human one, because these refineries do not just supply civilian gas stations. The security service of Ukraine has been explicit and consistent about the reasoning behind this campaign, describing these facilities as producing not only petrol and diesel, but aviation kerosene and lubricants used directly by the Russian armed forces. Every barrel of processing capacity taken offline in Ufa, in Salavat, in Syzran is a barrel that cannot become fuel for a Russian bomber, cannot become diesel for the trucks resupplying artillery batteries, cannot become the lubricants keeping armored columns operational. This is precision economic warfare aimed squarely at the machinery of the invasion itself, and it is being executed with drones flying distances that would have sounded like science fiction 3 years ago. 1,600 kilometers is not a typo. That is roughly the distance from London to Warsaw, flown by unmanned aircraft, past layers of Russian air defense, to strike a target Moscow assumed was permanently out of reach.